When I started my journey in PwC, I was not great at communication skills. When I was getting interviewed for Fasal, I did not talk to any of my friends, family, my colleagues. When it comes to startup ecosystem, generally, according to my learnings, is you don't get a hike that you expect of around 30-40%.
Qualified as a chartered accountant in 2016 and at a very early stage you made unconventional career moves, and that has proved to be a game changer for you in many ways from whatever I see and whatever I know about your career, right? So Rahul, can you rewind a little bit and tell us how did you start your career, why finance, and what was your career goal starting out? I've seen you've worked also at the big fours and stuff like that, and then you moved to startups, pretty much early stage startups. So tell us about that.
So, being honest to you, I'll just first pick up your question that why finance. So, I never knew why finance. It's just that I was going with the flow where my family was giving me a direction that this is what you want to opt for. So, I always wanted to become a master, go into masters, become an MBA. But it was like when you go into graduation and after your schooling, it's like a lag of 3-4 years where you get disconnected with your professional career. So, choosing CS was a right track that I will be in the continuity of my career, and I opted for CA. Post pursuing CA, again, it was like I wanted to become a merchant banker or so, or where the path will take up was not sure. But the primary intent was to start my journey with the Big Four. And that is how I opted for Big Fours. There also, it was when I qualified in 2016. So GST was in boom, which was live in 2017. And that is how I made a move to taxes. And I was like, being a part of GST, I can look for a better career in the long run, because it's like a start where everyone will be on the same page and same pace, irrespective of the experience or the journey that you have carried in the past. Post being in the consulting of tax for 2.5 years, I realized that I'm making it more static for myself, because I'm a person who is more dynamic in terms of professional areas or in terms of core competencies. So why only taxes? Because there my mind was getting blocked into a thought process of it's like provisioning debit credit of input or output or contingent liabilities, and not a holistic view of the balance sheet where a chartered accountant comes in place or looks at that, yes, I have to have a command in the complete balance sheet. That is what I decided to move to audit. Same in the Big Four's journey, and there I spent couple of years in the audit background as well as consulting in terms of due diligence, understanding how it works, how the complete MSME sector works, how listed clients work, what are the nuances, what takes the journey from MSME to the listed entities. That is the complete path that was chosen to. Fortunately, I got an opportunity for one of the startups. I would not say it's a startup, but it's a mid-sized company where it started with a startup journey only, invested by a PE as well as VC. So there I joined in the part of revenue and risk assurance in India1 Payments, where I realized that there's a lot more to do as a finance professional when you come in the industry journey. Because what happens is, being from Big Fours, it's more of understanding the client's requirement and fulfilling those needs. But when you're on the other side of the table, you have to create your own requirements, get the things work done, how you need to fix those things, what are the issues, what are the challenges. And what happens is, when you sit on the other side of the table, you become the complete owner of the documents, the repository of the information of the company, and the ownership for any good as well as wrongdoings that you take the decisions. And that was a turning point in my career, rather, I would say. That 2.5 years in India1 Payments, coming from risk assurance, controllership, FP&A, and that to a mid-sized company where we were in the stage of scale and automation. So today, when people talk about that automation is important, we have to draw a line that at what stage automation is important. Because to have automation in place, you need to understand the nuances, the cost that is involved in place, what is the growth that you are projecting, the vision, is it viable to spend it or not. So those nitty-gritties till the stage of DRHP, because we were in the stage of filing for DRHP IPO, we did everything at a micro level, scaling the company from 0 to, I would say, 5 out of 10 when I say rate it. There it gave me a holistic view. And then after spending 2.5 years, I was like, he had my journey in Big Fours in terms of consulting, in terms of audit, and then a mid-sized firm. Eventually I got an opportunity in Apario, which is a culture built equivalent to Amazon's ecosystem, where you go ahead with 7 rounds of interview and you become a little bit flamboyant that, yes, you have done something great, so this will be a good move for your career, and you will be able to look for a stability in your life. And that made me more excited to join Apario. And there, after spending almost 1 year, I realized that I have learned a lot of things when it comes to leadership principles, values, core practices in terms of day one culture, what should be the right model as to how a business should look like in terms of scale in an organized sector. But yes, in terms of designing that, when you want to build it from 0 to 1 or 0 to 5 again, you need to have that handle on the micro level information or micro level integrities. And I chose to move to a startup where I've almost spent 2 years right now. And I would say it's a fantastic journey, because building the startup from scratch along with the co-founders, it's like you act as a financial co-founder to the company. Everything, that from pin to aeroplane, be it the founders, the investors, building the team, because I would not say the team looks up to you, because it was not, there was no such team. But when it comes to the business team, the product team, everyone looks at you, because they believe that you will run the financial show and you will help the organization to scale it in the financial discipline and hygiene. And that is how those journey eventually flipped in my way, and I started taking it up one by one. Yeah.
So my point is, from the Big Four, why did you decide to go to India Payments? What's your thought process in that?
So, being honest to you, I was not looking for any such opportunity. I was happy with whatever I'm doing in the Big Fours, and I was like, I have to spend a couple of more years. But suddenly the opportunity popped up, and it was a risky bet for me, because how it happened was, when it comes to Big Four, where we have a team or department of 200 members, like when we are in the audit team, it's a team of 200 members, and moving to a company which is of 200 members was a little bit of shock to me. For a month it took me time to settle down with the team size, because this is what I'm operating with. So that comes into your mind, why so? And eventually I also did not think of whether I should opt for ITC or TCS or Infosys, or why I chose India1 Payments. It happened with a fluke. And the only question or concern which I had was that I'm going to join a mid-sized firm, so whether they'll pay me salary or not also. So it
Okay.
was like, when I interacted with my seniors in terms of my FC and CFO, they were like, Rahul, during the stage of demonetization also, there was no concern about salary. So that was the micro level thinking that I had at that point of time. Eventually, I realized that that was just a micro level thought process, but there's a very broad area in terms of scaling up your journey, your dreams, getting into a handle financial support system, the complete revamping of ERP model, how the complete automation works. That is what the core values that I should have thought of before entering these organizations. And that is what I mentor to all my colleagues and friends also, that forget about those steps, but this is a big scale step that you're going to take if you choose a mediocre size firm or a startup.
Amazing. So you said it was a risky bet, okay, in many
Yeah.
ways. So how long did the decision process take? What was your career plan as such?
So I'll tell you honestly, it took me a couple of months in India1 Payments that whether it's a right bet or not. But eventually, post that, I realized that whatever next bets, if you take for a startup in life, that would fetch you returns only. When I joined Apario, also, it was a thought process that I'm moving for a to a place where I want to settle down. But then you realize that the core values that you have inherited in your journey, you are not going to settle down so early, and it will take somewhere your 30s for you to settle down. And that made me kept me exciting in terms of taking up these new challenges and roles in place. And
Okay.
I definitely believe that these will fetch returns in terms of upskilling yourself, your learnings, your values in the long term.
Okay. So when you took your first, I'm just emphasizing a little bit on India1 Payments, right? Because that is something a lot of people want to do today. They want to get into a setup where they can get their hands dirty, and then they can grow into a startup ecosystem. So when you talk about India1 Payments, what was your goals joining them? Like,
So what I realized, I'll tell you eventually when I joined India1 Payments also, the goal or the ambition at that point of time was to land up to the level of CFO. However, I realized during that journey that if you want to land up to the level of CFO, you have to go through all each and every areas at micro level. Like the best decision in my life, I would say, was to be a part of tax team, because any finance professional who had an initial career in tax will be able to understand the nuances, criticalities, regulatory compliances, risk and threats, whatever comes in place, they'll be able to gauge them better and take better decisions, make wiser decisions in terms of how the financial model or the organization can be structured, which can lead to a healthy in organization in terms of financials as well as compliance. So that is one thing India1 gives to in place. But to be in that place, or to have in that, take the roles and responsibilities, one should understand that they have to deep dive in terms of acting as an individual contributor. Because what I see a gap in the current point of time is that we ourselves get overwhelmed by being a chartered accountant, and then we think that we are starting with a managerial role. And that is one thing that people has to understand, that irrespective of you being a team leader or a manager, you have to act as an individual contributor forever in your life, and that will only help you to grow and succeed at every moment. So there you have to divide your roles and responsibilities in terms of what are your core values and competencies that can help the organization as well as you, as well as what are the things that you can pass on to the team. So there you have to, it's a very thin line, but you have to draw a clear line. And that is what helped me. Like being from a big four, where in terms of tax background and then audit background, I realized that there are some things which I can only bring to the table in terms of expertise, and I have to get a complete handhold on those areas. And in fact, during my tenure, when I've almost interviewed around 300 to 400 chartered accountants, I see a gap in these particular thought process, that people look up to a managerial role where they can run the team, but without being an individual contributor, you cannot add value to the team also, as well as you need to keep your team as well as the organization motivated towards you.
Amazing. That's great. Okay, Rahul, tell us about Fasal. Like, how did Fasal happen? What was your role? And would you want to emphasize your experiences, your journey, your learnings, and your decision making process of joining Fasal?
So when it comes to my decision making process of joining Fasal, I'll be honest to you that when I was getting interviewed for Fasal, I did not talk to any of my friends, family, my colleagues. I did not say that I'm joining Fasal. And that is what I'm saying in the platform also right now, because what happens is everyone comes with a demotivation that why are you doing so? You're in a very good place. You are at Apario and then managing it, looking at a turnover of 1500 crores, 15,000 crores, as well as a big scale ecosystem in terms of the electronic segment. What makes you do so?
Can you tell us a little bit about Fasal?
Sure, definitely. I'll tell about Fasal. So Fasal started in 2018 with a vision to cater the needs of the farmers in terms of helping them grow better as well as grow more. So our tagline is, when we say Fasal, grow more, grow better. So how I look at it is, we act as doctors to the farmers who help them take better decisions, or as well as scientific decisions as to what to grow, when to grow, how to grow. Because currently in terms of the agri industry, it's coming from the legacy of the forefathers, that what they are doing in terms of how much water they have to put in also. That is also like what my forefathers have taught me. They are following that legacy, as well as the surrounding and the climatic changes, primarily in terms of verbal discussions, and it's more of a word of mouth and nothing scientific. But when everything is moving towards technology with every scientific decision making, why not agree? So that was one of the visions with which Fasal got started by our founders. So in the month of January 2018, I joined Fasal in the year 22 in the month of November. So during that period, it was like Fasal were in the pre-series A round, and the objective of me having there in place was that we are going for a subsequent round, putting more financial controls in place and looking for a better growth, which is a financial growth and a financially viable company. So that is how the plan was. And when I joined Fasal, moreover, when I talk about financial hygiene, so I talk about a holistic view in terms of the BAU activities or the basic hygiene in terms of controllership, audit, and those things that are like 20% of the areas that I've taken care of. But beyond that, it was more of managing business due diligence, financial due diligence, legal due diligence, getting in touch with investors. So a finance controller or finance head at Fasal, the role that he plays is, there are n number of bosses. When it comes to Amazon, Apario, or India1 Payment, you have to report to one boss of yours or one manager. But when it comes to Fasal, you have n number of reporting managers, I would say. So how it comes is, it's like existing investors, prospective investors, the team also, because it's like a lean team you are running. So more than acting like a manager, you have to work as a team together. You cannot act as a manager. So I always treat them as my bosses itself, as well as then reporting to founders, who is one from a background, one of from a product background. So all of come with different mindset. The product team looks from a different expectation from the finance team. The business team looks from a different point of view. Managing those things were challenging, as well as very much fun loving, because I enjoyed my tenure at Fasal a lot, and I'm enjoying a lot right now also. So that is how it is. Now when it comes to fundraising, so most of the time in Fasal was spent in terms of fundraising. So we had bridge rounds also. Then we had a Series A round of $12 million, and therein in terms of incoming investors going through the DD journey, that was something which is great to have. Because when I talk to the founders as well as finance professionals in any of the startup, so people are more unhappy with the fundraising journey, that it's a tedious journey to have it. And I always say that the more fundraising journey you come across, you enjoy a lot more. That is the time where you don't see the time and or the clock running. It's like some goal that you have to achieve, and that is all about. And for that, you have to go through thorough DD. How people look at, or finance professional looks at it, that how can we close the DDs quickly? For us, it's like we have to close the DD quickly in a healthy manner. So we prefer all the points that comes up gets resolved, and we were always regular in touch with the DD team, the investors, that where are we making progress, what support do you need from the company. So that gives more of a trust to the company also, as well as the investors and the compliance as well as legal team who is involved, that yes, the company is going with the right path and direction and the complete support is in place. So most of the time, I would say it was in a business decision making role as well as fundraising. Fundraising itself is a different journey, which is the best journey which any finance professional can come across in their startup ecosystem.
So when you say DD, it's due diligence.
Yes, it's due diligence.
So what are founders exactly looking for in a CFO and finance controller?
What they expect from a finance professional is more of a financially hygiene and disciplined guy. And again, when I use the word hygiene and discipline, it's not from a controllership perspective only, it's from overall holistic view. Because the complete era has shifted from only scalability or growth towards growth as well as profitability. And there, a finance professional needs to be more active in terms of execution. Because what happens is people at a controllership level or a CFO level wants to delegate, guide, or mentor the organization as well as the team as to how to grow. But when it comes to startup, that was Series A startup, which is a lean team. When it comes to Series A, B, C, where you have a lean team, you have to execute at the ground, because managing stakeholders like foreign investors or multinational investors is also a challenging task, where if you don't put your hands on, you won't be able to help out. So what the founders clearly look about is whether the guy who is coming in the ecosystem has worked on, has put their hands on in whatever he has done, and whether he'll be able to understand the nuances at a micro level. Being tech friendly, tech savvy is good, but do you know how the manual processes run? Will you be able to implement or put automation in place? Do you understand what the technical skill sets required? Because you have to be an all-rounder when it comes to these laws and compliances. Like being a chartered accountant, you have to look for FEMA compliances, you have to look for company law, you have to look what are the external laws when it comes to a specific industry comes in place. Like I'll tell you, I was not aware of how the agri industry works. There are n number of compliances for agri industry which I learned when I was a part of Fasal. But you have to be ready to learn and work upon it. What I see at times with the professionals, that this is not my core competency or this is not my area. There we have to draw a line that you have to take care of anything and everything from pen to aeroplane.
So Rahul, when you talk about moving to a startup, what how does the salary negotiations usually work? Like, do you have to take a 50% cut and join in, which is usually you read everywhere?
This is not really true, I'll tell you. When it comes to startup ecosystem, everyone looks at the past background in terms of your professional skill sets as well as the salary you draw. And how it happens generally, according to my learnings, is you don't get a hike that you expect of around 30-40%. Because everyone or anyone who has grown in a startup has been on a stagnant pay when they join in the organization. That is no increment, but no depreciation, also, I would say. Eventually, when you prove yourself, you have a there's no limits or sky is the limit to grow. That is the difference. But what people look at is that from the initial step, if you get a 40% increment, that is not going to happen, because you have to prove yourself to get those returns in place. So I don't see a 50% cut anywhere in terms of these things. I
Okay.
haven't come across this point actually.
Folks who are looking for opportunities like this, so this is like you're also playing like a CFO, right? So it's a great opportunity to learn everything on ground, which you won't get otherwise.
I would say that the only thing that you have to keep in mind is you have to keep raising the bar. Because what happens is where the professionals lack or they are not able to implement is that is a startup ecosystem and we have to focus on the culture. But parallelly, when I look at culture and company, I'm like, you have to keep the momentum, like raising the bar in terms of a professionally managed company where you see till the scale of IPO. Because when you go for IPO, you have to look from microeconomics from day one. So any finance professional who comes in the journey, he has to act like that he has to plan for the longer vision of the organization, and then only things will happen in place for him also.
Yes.
Yes.
And how is it working with investors? Most of these investors are they're from the US, they're from Wharton School and all of Harvard Business School, very, very fancy in many, many ways. So what has been your learning with them, and how have you uh, understood them and managed to be aligned?
So how I look at the investors is, agreement is one side, which I was talking about, SHA or SSA or due diligence reports with them. It's more of a personal rapport and relationship, and that comes with whatever you deliver to them in terms of the trust and commitment you make and put in place. So investors are nowhere, like I see in the media or wherever I read. Also, people are more worried about investors' behavior, and so investors are the best people to work with. They have also invested with some of the factors, be it financial, strategic, or other things that they look up to in terms of impact also. But you have to be very much transparent, trustworthy, and competent enough to handle them also. That is one of the things, because things go in a rapid fire. And for an investor, I would say that they deal with hundred of startups like you, so they may not be able to devote that time, but you have to ensure that you devote those things for them, so that it makes them convenient to work with your startup. Like I'll tell you, I worked with 10, 15 startups during my journey of 7 or 8 years. 314 is a very professionally managed startup. They look for professional goals in terms of any of the organization, what they should be their financial goals, how it should be a financially high, means financially and professionally managed startup. It should be, there should be hygiene and discipline in terms of anything and everything. Now to have it that in place, they may be able to spend 3 or 4 hours in a month with you, not beyond that, or maybe one day or two. But you have to make sure that you make those 28 days better for them, make things easier and simpler for them, so that they are able to look up to this startup for the next level and their growth.
Okay, so
That
you
is
meant to say
that
you
is
work with
one
10.
thing which I always tell to the finance professionals, that understand the investor's mindset, to each and every business team also, or the product team also, that someone who has invested in your company, they look at that you will give a trustworthy, fruitful returns to them, not financially only, but impactfully, viably, in terms of time management, commitment, each and every factor is in place. So you have to take care of this, and you will be the ultimate repository. A finance controller, a head of finance, will be the ultimate repository for any information to the external members, and primarily to the investors.
Amazing. So communication skills, storytelling play a very important role in finance folks today, or it's hyped.
So I'll tell you, it's like storytelling is not what I believe it. What is the right story? You have to just communicate. So communication skills, yes, one of the things. But how apart from communication skills and storytelling, if you have the right technical skills in place and you're well versed with the laws, the market dynamics, the financial processes, how it's working, you will be able to tell the story very properly, and there won't be any gap in the communication skills. Communication skills is a matter of how much you communicate, how much you interact, how much you spend time with the team, with each and every member you are surrounded with on a daily basis. Because I'll tell you, eventually, when I started my journey in PwC, I was not great at communication skills. The first call with my client at LinkedIn in Singapore, I thought it's a customer care call, being honest to you. I was not that, I could not understand that fluency of English. So that happens with the work you do in terms of your path, your journey, how you come across. That goes with the flow.
Amazing. I wouldn't have even thought of, I thought you are a great communicator. So I thought, so that's so you've learned on the go. So that's a great message for everybody, right?
I still believe I have a lot to learn when it comes to communication. I believe that I may be able to understand the operations, technical expertise, financial expertise, but when it comes to communication, I have to learn a lot more. There's a lot more to do.
Rahul, I didn't ask you about your challenges. Like, it's something that people would want to know. What has been your challenges in your journey? What has been, we've seen only the good part. So Rahul has done this. What has been your challenges?
So every day I come through some or the other challenges, irrespective of somewhere from the investor in terms of reporting, the timelines, the team size. The best part is working with a lean team where you have to struggle for team. So that is one of the biggest challenges. The best part also, and the challenge is also there. The business team looks up to the finance team, the product team looks up to the finance team. So in the startup, what happens is everyone looks that every decision that comes in place should be a financial decision now. So there you act more like a business partner, irrespective of whatever you say, that yes, you need to devote that much time in the business partnering role. The shift has been there. And honestly, I would say realistically, it has happened that from a traditional CFO, we have started acting like a strategic CFO. No decision, irrespective of whatever AOP or budgets you make, on a real time basis, on a daily basis, you have to deal with n number of stakeholders. That even if you make a small change in the product, that has to be financially approved. That yes, it should not have a negative financial impact.
So what if somebody wants to stay with a startup till it reaches IPO? Is that a good idea, or how do you think about it? How do you think about your career when you join a startup? What's your thought process?
So, as I said, that you have to act like a finance co-founder, and when you act like a finance co-founder, you have to look at till the existence of the company, because being a part of the startup ecosystem, acting like a co-founder, you don't see an end to that era. You go with the flow and with each and every growth momentum. So, from the very first day, you have to look for the vision that what next you can do for the company. It's not like what the company wants right now. You may go slow, but you have to go right. That is
Yep.
what one of the biggest approach that anyone should follow. And it's more of completely, IPO is not the end of roadmap, but it's like making a healthy financial ecosystem for the organization is the best roadmap to follow.
With what's happening in the startup ecosystem, right? Earlier, a lot of companies were pulled up for mismanagement of funds and a lot of different aspects. So do you see investors as well as founders now very cautious that, hey, you know what, even at an early stage, I need a finance controller, I need someone to look into different aspects of the business, right? So, and do you think this is going to create a lot more demand for finance folks working closely with founders pretty early? Your take on it?
So I'll tell you, there's no doubt that it will create a lot of demand. But when it comes to early stage startups, more often what happens is that the funds or the team size does not permit you to have an experienced finance controller in place. That is what the problem is. There, anyone and everyone should start with fractional CFO or part-time CFO or virtual CFO who can support them in the right way with limited time that can be devoted to the company. But yes, with whomsoever you're working with, they should be competent enough to handle anything and everything. Because be it an early stage startup or a or a scale startup, everyone have the same nuances in terms of, be it in volume. In the early stage, the volume is less. That is, you interact with 2 3 investors. Gradually you interact with 10 investors. That's the only game changing part. But having right decisions from the very first day is very important. And the shift in the last 2 3 years, how it has happened is, everyone in the startup ecosystem, be it the founders, business team, or as well, or the VC ecosystem, has moved towards a profitability thought process, that every penny that you spend has to be reported very clearly. Like how we believe that in the family also, when you run a family, whatever you spend you should be aware of. Otherwise, after a day, means after a month or so, you will realize that you had 5 lakhs in your pocket and where it has gone. Similarly, initially what has happened is, wherever you read about the startups has failed. Right now also, came across a startup who has raised 40 million and that has failed after 7 8 years or so. So what is lagging there is, they don't keep a track of the funds, how it's moving. So they are not able to take a financially right decision. People are focused towards growth, market spending, scalability, but making a financially viable decision, that is it the right time to spend or not, there you need a financially competent guy in place who can help the startup every time, and it means every moment, how it's happening and how not. So that is one thing very important. It's just that in the initial stage, you should start with fractional CFO, as I said earlier, and then eventually you need to convert it to a full-time CFO.
Do you find such startup opportunities? Where do they advertise for a CFO or a finance controller at a startup? How do you discover such roles?
So how I look at it is, you have to be more active in terms of communication with the founders. You have to go to the platform events, talk to people, so that people get to know what you can bring on the table for them, what value addition you can bring to the organization, and that is the right way to be in place. Apart from that, yes, there are HR management platform in place where headhunters reach out to you based on your profile, that
Yep.
what you have done in the past. So moreover, to start with a startup journey, what people look at is, should have a complete control on the financials. So at least a controllership role should be over, because the first stage where the founders want you to onboard is, yes, he'll be able to make it a financially viable system. He'll be able to close the auditing procedures. He'll be able to put all the legal compliances in place. And eventually, other things, definitely, as and when the startup grows and the need is there, he'll be able to take it up. So
Okay.
if that is there in your portfolio in terms of your learning, you'll be able to make it up in the market.
To others 26, 27 year olds, 28-year-olds, or even 30-year-olds who want to enter into the startup ecosystem? Like,
So
what
I'll
would
tell them this is the best time to enter into a startup ecosystem, because VCs has stopped pouring money with a startup where they don't look like viable, and everyone is looking from a financially viable startup ecosystem, a healthy startup ecosystem. So it's the right time. In fact, the risk that you used to take it 5 years ago has shrunk down almost to around 50% of the risk that you're taking now. So that is one of the good things to enter into. That you will see that the startups are also not just randomly hiring, or random startups are not coming in place. But yes, in terms of your skill sets also, means all the financial professionals should think about that they should keep raising the bar. They should have the complete obsession when it comes to stakeholders obsession, that what your stakeholders want, time management. You have to go to the nitty-gritties at micro level, irrespective of at whatever level you are joining. So it's always day one. It will be a new day for you. Every day it will be a challenging role. But yes, you are going to grow exponentially. You are going to earn a lot. There's earn and learn a lot, I would say. So
amazing?
there's nothing, you won't lose anything in your life, irrespective of whatever you do. Like when we joined CA also, it was like, even if you don't crack CA, the journey will teach you everything. That is how
Yep.
I look about startup also, that whatever may be the destination that you reach about, maybe the startup does not give you fetch good returns, or they may fail, but the journey will help you to learn a lot.
Anything else you would want to add? Like,
Apart from that, I would say that you should not shy away from making the next move that you want to. And what I believe is, for me, I look at that you don't have to stick that once you complete 2 years or 3 years and make a profile with a particular company, then only you're ready to move. Whenever you have opportunity and wherever you have opportunity where your gut says that yes, you can go ahead with that, you should explore, because this is the only right time for exploring for you. Once you miss this journey or this age, you may become more stubborn or stagnant, which I get to hear from all my seniors with whom I have worked with or learned from them. So that is what is making me keep up the momentum in terms of taking any and every bet.